Hi, I'm Steve Heaton. I am the course director and instructor at Y-kiki Divers in St. Louis, and today we're going to introduce you to your first computer. It's the Oceanic VEO 1.0. Now, when I started diving, and a lot of your instructors started diving, we used this. It's called the Recreational Dive Planner, or the RDP. It was a great device. It had all these different numbers and slots and things on it, and we had to learn a little bit of math to deal with it. That's a little bit confusing. Then we learned about multi-level diving, and we used this little device called the wheel. It was a lot more fun to use, but it was also a little bit challenging. We learned about touching and piercing arrows. It was a little bit more complicated. It still worked. Then we got into the digital age, and we learned how to use the ERDPML. This was basically a calculator that did everything those other two devices did, but they did it digitally, so it was much easier to work with. However, errors could be made. There's a little bit of a learning curve. So with you guys, you're going to get to use your first dive computer, and again, it's the Oceanic VEO 1.0. With this computer being a one-button computer, it's kind of nice to know all the functions that are available. It is a good entry-level computer, but it is very function-rich. So it's kind of a neat thing to navigate around. As I described earlier, there are two functions of the button. You could push the button and release, or push and hold. So push and hold the button for about 2 seconds. You're going to get to the dive log screen. So if we'd had any previous dives, we could enter them here. If you push it again, it's going to tell you that we went to 11 feet, we stayed 14 minutes, and it was 79 degrees, and it was sea level. We're going to push and hold again. It's going to tell us our no fly time, which at this point, we're free to fly. There are no numbers in there. We're going to push and hold it again, 2 seconds. It's going to get us to our plan, and it says air. So we're on air. Our next screen will push and hold. All right, on this screen, we can actually set it for enriched air. So you'll see that air is flashing. I'm going to push it once. It's going to tell me I have 21% oxygen, and it's set for 1.4 ppO. 21 is the correct percentage of oxygen in air. So the air we're breathing now is roughly 21% oxygen. With enriched air, that's a little bit of a gift to divers, because that in some cases will enable us to extend our bottom time. So if we up that percentage, it actually is not for deeper diving, but it's good for a variety. Most of the recreational diving we do, it's actually a very good thing to add oxygen. So we take that up. A lot of times it'll be a 32% or 36% mix, but it could be anywhere in between. And having enriched air actually reduces our nitrogen debt. So enriched air can be a very good thing for us as divers. If I keep pushing that, it's going to go up 22, 23, all the way up to 50%. We'll push and hold it again, and then we go to our next screen, which is our 50% O2 default, which if you're breathing enriched air, you want it to go to the 50% default. That way, if you forget to reset it, it will automatically go to 50%, which will shorten your bottom time considerably. Push and hold. It's going to say set. We can set our PPO, or our partial pressure of oxygen. The maximum recommended limit is 1.4. If you have a contingency, it will go to 1.6. This computer will actually calculate from 1.2 to 1.6, but we want that set on the 1.4. So when it's 1.4, I'm going to press and hold, wet, and then it's flashing on, and that's exactly what we want. We want the computer to turn on. If we would forget to turn it on, it will turn on when we get in the water. You see set an imperial or IMP. That will actually go imperial, or if I press that once, it'll go to metric. I'm going to press it again, it'll go back to imperial. I'm going to press and hold. It has a deep stop setting. That deep stop setting is on. If you'd like, you can turn that off or leave it on. We'll leave it on in this particular case. We're on the algorithm screen, and you'll see the DSAT is flashing. The DSAT algorithm is a very liberal algorithm, much the same as the PADI algorithm. So we're going to leave that set on the DSAT algorithm. If we push that once, it's going to go to the Z algorithm. The Z algorithm is more conservative. If the water is cold, if you're not feeling great, if you have a friend diving with another computer and it's more conservative than yours, then this is a great algorithm for that. We'll go back to the DSAT, and again, I'll press and hold it. Here you can do a 12 or 24-hour clock setting. We're going to leave it on the 12-hour. Press and hold. We're at our clock setting. The hour is flashing. If I need to change that, I can press it as many times as I need to get it set to the correct time. Once I get it to the correct hour, press and hold once again. You'll see the minutes flashing, and I can set it to the correct time there. And when I'm finished, press and hold. You'll notice the last screen is the ID and the serial number on the computer, which you don't need to do anything with there. If you press and hold that last time, it's going to take you back to the surface mode screen. All right, earlier we learned how to plan our dive with our dive computer. Now we need to know how to dive our computer. So, things to think about. First of all, this is a non-air integrated computer, which means it will give us our depth and time, but it will not tell us what our air pressure is. So you still need to check your submersible pressure gauge every couple of minutes for your air pressure. Your computer, you should do the same. Check it every couple of minutes to make sure what your depth and time is. It does have an extra long strap on it. So what that enables you to do is you can put it around your wrist, or you can put it around a wetsuit or a dry suit. It will accommodate all of those options. So once you put it on your wrist and you're ready to do your dive, if you forget to turn it on, no worries. Once you get it wet, it will turn on. It goes from surface mode to dive mode as soon as it gets wet. Once you get to 5 feet underwater, it will start recording dive time. So once again, throughout your dive, check it every few minutes. When you get close to the end of your dive, it will tell you how much bottom time you have left. You'll begin to make your ascent. When you start your ascent, you're going to want to look over here in the top right corner, and you're going to see a little bar graph. The bar graph, I think you're all pretty familiar with from looking at your cell phone batteries and signals, but it works very much the same. There's a little bar graph there. When that bar graph starts pulsing up, 1 or 2 bars, very good. 3 or 4 bars means you're going a little bit too fast. 5 or 6 bars, whoa, let's slow way down. So by watching your bar graph and ascending slowly, that maintain your ascent rate. We always do a safety stop at the end of every dive. It's always recommended. There's a few times that it is required, a dive to 100 feet, or if you get close to your no decompression limit. You'll want to follow it up to 15 feet and the countdown timer will appear. You can see your actual depth on the top of the screen and the countdown timer on the lower right. So stay between 10 and 20 feet and watch it count down to 0. At that point, your safety stop is complete. If a computer fails underwater, if a battery would die or some other failure, at that point they should surface immediately, take time to do a safety stop, come up to the surface, get out, and then at that point, if they have a backup, great, they can continue diving. Otherwise, at that point, they should stay out of the water 24 hours until they get a replacement. So recommendations for computer failures. Once you come up to the surface, there's nothing you need to do with your computer. Get out of the water. You can break your gear down, change your tank out, get ready to do a repetitive dive. At that point, if you wait 10 minutes, you'll be able to go into log mode, which is when you press and hold that button. I think you can all see that last. It's going to tell you that you can go back in and find your last dive. Now, this will hold up to 12 dives. So you can keep diving even over a period of 2 or 3 days if you need to without clearing it, and the dives will stay on your computer. So remember, wait 10 minutes. You can go back in and pull up your log dive. And at that point, once you've logged the dive, you're ready to begin your second dive of the day, a repetitive dive. So put your computer back on, go get wet. All right, with regards to maintaining and taking care of your computer, there's a few simple things that will add to the life of your computer for many years. Much like the rest of your gear, it does need to be maintained and cleaned. So when you're finished diving today, get out of the water. When you're breaking your gear down, remember, rinse it off in fresh water. get it dried off, and pack it in a safe, secure place where it's not going to get abused. It does have a very durable, rugged case. The case protects it very well. Not that you should drop it, but if that would happen, it should be able to take a little bit of abuse without any complications. Diving is a pretty gentle sport, but when it gets down to what kind of environments we're in, we dive around rocks, we dive around coral, we dive around a lot of sharp objects. It's not uncommon that you would scratch a polycarbonate lens. So there is a scratch-resistant cover that goes over the top of your computer. The one I'm showing you today has been removed, but that cover you can take off and on, and it protects your lens. So, and then when it gets scratched up, you can get a replacement for it. It has a low battery indicator. It's actually in the lower right-hand corner. When you see that getting low, it's a good idea to replace the battery. It just shows a cell battery, and it'll have the bars on it. Regards to battery life, it does have a user-changeable battery in it. That's a good thing for a lot of people. I still strongly recommend, even though it's user-exchangeable, I strongly recommend that you take it in to have it serviced and have a professional do it. There's a ring around it, there's a cover on it, there's an O-ring in it, there's silicone involved, and getting that sealed up well before you go diving the next time is pretty critical. So you can take it in and have it serviced. It takes minutes to do it, and then they'll get you back in the water right away. It is a not rechargeable battery, so you'll have to replace it from time to time. With moderate use, this battery should last you a couple of years. With a lot of use, it might last you a year or less. So it does have a battery life to it. If you would find that your battery compartment is flooded, and you can see on the back there's a window here, if you would see water in there, that's a bad thing. So what you want to do is, first of all, take that cover off. It might require a spanner wrench or a tool. If you go to one of your instructors, they probably carry one with them. But get that off, take that cover off, and get the battery out as quickly as possible, and then dry that compartment off. The compartment is actually separate from the rest of the computer. So if you can get the battery off before the battery would leak, you dry it off, put a new battery in, and you'll be ready to dive again once the cover's put back in place. But once again, I strongly recommend bringing it in for servicing. All right, some advanced features of our Oceanic VEO 1.0 that you may be interested in. First of all, I've been asked about night diving. It's a great computer at night. The only limitation, it does not have a backlight. So if you were to dive this at night, you would need an alternate light source, which is usually your flashlight that you can shine on your computer. You'll be able to see the numbers great. Additionally, you'll probably be interested in diving in enriched air. To dive enriched air with this computer, it's very easy to set. So remember we talked about the push and hold function. So push and hold, that'll go past the last dive. There's fly, plan. The next screen you get to, will allow you to set for enriched air. I'm set at 34%. My partial pressure of oxygen, my maximum allowable is set at 1.4. My maximum operating depth is 102 feet. I'm ready to do a dive if I were to analyze at 34%. If I analyze my tank to, we'll say 37%, I can then press. You'll see I'm at 37%. My partial pressure of oxygen doesn't change, and my maximum operating depth is 91 feet. So very simple to do, and if I wish to take that back to air mode, I can press. Remember, this computer goes up to 50% enriched air. Once I get to 50, when I hit it again, it's going to take me back to air mode. I'm going to press and hold it. At that point, I can scroll it all the way back to surface mode. Just keep it held down. You're going to see the time, you'll see the ID number, and then it's back to surface mode. You can use this computer to dive anywhere from the surface to 190 feet. Is it recommended for technical diving? I think it's limited in some of its functions to diving with mixed gases, trimix. So at this point, I would say this would be very limiting. Possibly as a backup computer, but I would not recommend it as a primary computer. One other feature of this computer that you'll be very interested in should you wish to dive at above 1,000 feet. This computer will actually calculate and reset for altitude diving. If you were to dive at altitude It will plan your dive accordingly. It will take into consideration whatever your altitude is. So dive planning is already set for you. Plan a dive as you normally would and dive it as you normally would. It works out very well.